chapter 8. We were in the earlier chapter 6 last week when we talked about the kingdom of God. And today, as I speak about Jesus as our King, obviously there's, you should catch that that's an obvious connection there of the King and his kingdom. And we're going to actually run through several parts of this chapter that might, at first blush, seem to feel like they just are like different stories. There's this story, then there's this story, then there's this story. But I want you to recall and remember that when Matthew drew together these stories and composed the gospel, he had a purpose for putting these things in the order and sequence that they are in. And so sometimes, though they may feel like they're different stories, we probably should take a step back, think about the context of its composition, and realize that there may be a theme that is being thread through this that Matthew wanted for us to catch. And I think that that is the case in this collection of quick stories that are in the Gospel of Matthew. I wonder, is anybody here today who was not born Canadian but became a Canadian after entering into the country today? Do you remember the pledge that you made when you stood before the judge? I'm going to read it to you today because it's quite interesting. Actually, I'm going to read two to you. I'm going to read to you the oath that a new Canadian makes at the time of their becoming a citizen. And then I'm going to read to you an oath that was made to King James I several hundred years ago. Because included in this oath of the Canadian is, of course, our commitment to the Queen as our sovereign. And King James, those many years ago, was sovereign then. So today, or most recently, it would be something like this. I swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Canada, her heirs and successors, and that I will faithfully observe the laws of Canada and fulfill my duties as a Canadian citizen. Quite strong, quite forceful, quite clear, quite short. Let me tell you what you had to go through if you lived several hundred years ago. I will not do this in one breath. Oh, by the way, context. Understand that at that time England was pushing away against the Holy Roman Empire with influence of the papal authority, the Pope, over the land, and England was determined to set its own course. And so there are several references to the Pope that are in here. That's a historical reference that is there. It's basically saying the Pope's not going to force his influence on England. Obviously, as they move away from that historically, that kind of strong rhetoric didn't need to be part of it. But let me read to you this. You may want to go and get a refreshment while I read. I do truly and sincerely acknowledge, profess, testify, and declare in my conscience before God and the world that our sovereign Lord King James is lawful and rightful King of this realm and all other in His Majesty's dominions and countries, and that the Pope neither of himself nor by any authorities of the Church or See of Rome or by any means with any other hath any power or authority to depose the King or to depose any of the Majesty's kingdoms or dominions or to authorize any foreign prince to invade or annoy him, I like that, or his countries, or to discharge any of his subjects of their allegiance and obedience to His Majesty, or to give any license to leave to any of them to bear arms, raise tumults, or to offer any violence or hurt His Majesty's royal person, state, or government, or to any of His Majesty's subjects within His Majesty's dominions. Period. Also, I do swear that my heart, notwithstanding any declaration or sentence of excommunication or deposition made or granted, or to be made or granted by the Pope or his successors, or by any authority derived, or pretended to be derived from him or his see against the King, his heirs, or successors, or any absolution of the said subjects from their obedience, I will bear faith and true allegiance to His Majesty, His heirs and successors, and him or them will defend to the uttermost of my power against all conspiracies and attempts whatsoever which shall be made against his or their persons, their crown and dignity, by reason of color or any such sentence or declaration or otherwise, and will do my best endeavor to disclose and make known unto His Majesty, His heirs and successors, all treasons and traitorous conspiracies which I shall know or hear of be against him or any of them. Period. And I do further swear that I do from my heart abhor, detest, and abjure, as imperious and heretical, this damnable doctrine and position, that princes would be excommunicated or deprived by the Pope may be deposed or murdered by their subjects, or any whatsoever, period. And I do believe, and in conscience and in resolve, that neither the Pope nor any person whatsoever hath power to absolve me of this oath, or any part thereof, which I acknowledge by good and full authority to be lawfully ministered unto me, and do renounce all pardons and dispensations to the contrary, and all these things I do plainly and sincerely acknowledge and swear, according to these express words by me spoken, and according to the plain and common sense and understanding of the same words, without any equivocation, or mental evasion, or secret reservation whatsoever. And I do make this recognition and acknowledgement heartily, willingly, and truly upon the true faith of a Christian, so help me God. That is an oath of allegiance. What, though, are we meaning to do when we declare an oath of allegiance to a sovereign king, queen, to a land, to governments, to anyone, to Jesus? I mean, we use that word, it shows up in the lyrics of songs, and we throw them out. We talk about the King, Jesus. And the words flow quite easily off of our lips. King, Jesus. But when was the last time that you took a real good, sober look at what you mean in your heart and mind when you say that Jesus is your King? The oath to become Canadian, very ceremonial. The oath that we saw before King James took in a whole new adventure that talked about my willingness to absolutely defend this one against any and all tyranny, so help me God. Well, what does it mean for you when you say that you're going to make Jesus the King of your life? Well, let's have a look at the scriptures this morning in Matthew chapter 8. What you're going to see as we move through these stories relatively quickly, and I will pause with them to draw out a couple of points, is that we are after the Sermon on the Mount, which is Matthew 5, 6, and 7, in which we hear Jesus with some of his greatest ever lessons. We now get to see him move forward with the mindset and the commitment and the challenge that he laid out for all those people. He's not going to move forward, and he's going to demonstrate it. He's going to model it in his life. And so we actually see him begin to work his way through the local communities. Verse 8 says, chapter 8, verse 1 says this: when he came down from the mountain, right? It was the Sermon on the Mount, and so he was up at the side of a hill. When he came down from the mountainside, large crowds followed him. Get that fixed in your mind. Large crowds following him. A man with leprosy came and knelt before him and said, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing. Be clean." And immediately he was cured of his leprosy. Jesus said to him, "See that you don't tell anyone. Go show yourself to the priest and offer the gift Moses commanded as a testimony to them." I'm not going to try and elaborate why Jesus tells him not to tell anyone at this point, but catch this, that it is the man who comes to Jesus in faith. And in response to that declaration, "You can heal me if you want to," Jesus' response says, "I am willing." He heals him. And then all of a sudden we follow the story along a little further. When Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him asking for the Lord. What's a centurion? Anyone? Say again? A centurion?
Man of over 100 soldiers.
Right. Okay, so century. So a Roman soldier is what we're talking about, a member of the centurion. When Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him, a Roman soldier, asking for help. "Lord," he said, "my servant lies at home, paralyzed and in terrible sufferings." Okay, picture that in your mind. Think of the historical context. Rome rules at this point. They do extend significant privileges for local kingdoms to function kind of in a pseudo-autonomous way, but if anything comes up that needs to be controlled, Rome has a powerful fist that they wield aggressively, violently. And so there is this Roman centurion who comes to Jesus. And he is pleading with Jesus, saying, I have a servant, and he's suffering at home. Lord, he said, my servant lies at home, paralyzed in terrible suffering. And Jesus said to him, I will go and heal him. The centurion replied, Lord, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof. But just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he was astonished. Okay? Put an astonished expression on your visual image of Jesus. And he said to those who were following him, I tell you the truth, I've not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. Who is this man? He's a Roman centurion. Jesus says, look, I've been moving amongst my people. I've not met one of them who has the faith of this Roman man. That would be a scandalous statement to say. However, he continues, I say to you that many will come from the east and the west and will take their places at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the subjects of the kingdom will be thrown outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And Jesus said to the centurion, go. It will be done just as you believed it would, and his servant was healed at that very hour. Notice the parallels that are here. First, the man with leprosy came to Jesus and said, you can heal me if you want. And then the centurion comes to Jesus and says, you can heal my servant if you want. Both very clear and parallel expressions of faith that simply acknowledges that in the man that they are looking to right now, there is, and in the centurion's word, authority. And he gives the analogy, right? He says, listen, I've got soldiers under me, and when I snap my finger, they move. And he's saying, Jesus, I know you have authority. You just have to say the word, and it'll be done. It's an extraordinary expression of faith in Jesus, that he's come to him and expressed his faith with him, and it's unqualified. You can do this. And Jesus is just astonished, it says, as he considers the faith of this man, and as Matthew is bracketing these together, also then the faith of the man who had the leprosy. If we continue to read through the next section, we'll see that there are other accounts of Jesus healing persons. He heals Peter's mother-in-law, and then it says that there were many who were demon-possessed and brought to him, and he drove out those spirits as well. In verse 18, the conversation changes a wee bit. It steps away from the healing events and the authority events. And it turns to a question that I really want to for us to narrow in on today, and that is this understanding of when we say we're going to follow Jesus, when we say we're going to acknowledge him as our King, what is it that we are meaning to say? Verse 18 says, when Jesus saw the crowd around him, he gave orders to cross to the other side of the lake. I don't know why. You do know that if we read through the Gospels, there are numerous occasions where Jesus actually doesn't want to be with crowds. He kind of just pushes away the fame that seems to be being attached to him. That might be something that is related to him telling that man with leprosy, don't tell anybody. This is for you. This is my gift to you. And so he says, we're going to go across the other side of the lake. But then it says in verse 19, then a teacher of the law came to him and said, Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go. Who's a teacher of the law? What does that mean? Perhaps a Pharisee, yeah. Certainly a man of Jewish authority. A teacher of the law. The assumption I think that we can make is that those who were in the circle watching this and saw this man come up to Jesus and say, I'll go wherever you go, they would have recognized him as a man of authority and status within the Jewish community. Now, you'd think that Jesus, as he moves amongst these people, and there's all kinds of opposition and you know, not certain that they want to embrace him or not, that to see this man of influence and power to very publicly, in front of a crowd of people, say, I'm with him, I'm with Jesus. You think the Jews would kind of think, okay, perfect. Now we snagged one of the influencers. Now we've got one of the big guys on our team. But he responds in a most curious way, and I'll just read it to you, and then we'll pick it apart a little bit. Teacher, I'll follow you wherever you go. Jesus replied, foxes have holes, birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. We had no other elaboration. It's going to change gears and talk about another disciple coming to Jesus at that point. A couple of things that are right there. First of all, he refers to himself as the Son of Man. In the Gospel of Matthew, that's the first time that he refers to himself as the Son of Man. And as the story will begin to unfold, we begin to recognize that that is the title that he takes to himself to identify himself as the, for all intents and purposes, King of humanity. Why would he respond to this promise to go with this man? This man who promised to go with Jesus, why would he respond with the statement that I don't have any place to live? Here's what I think is going on here. I suspect that this Jewish teacher of the law, came to Jesus with an earnestness, with an honesty, recognizing that there were miracles being done by this man. There's something about this Jesus that I need to present myself to. But it does seem that Jesus kind of went his way through the kind of normal expectations to the heart of the matter. You see, it was not uncommon for Jewish persons to align themselves with significant teachers, a rabbi, and becoming a disciple of that rabbi. There would have been groups all around the place. So that when John the Baptist has his disciples and Jesus comes and is baptized by him and he moves on, some of John's disciples leave John and go to follow after Jesus. This was not uncommon. And so for this man to be saying, I'm with you now. I'm with you. Jesus essentially says to him, are you really now? Are you really with me? Because guess what? Guess what? I don't even know where I'm sleeping tonight. If you are looking for some kind of status, if you're looking for some kind of material reward, if you're looking for some kind of blessings that are going to fall into your life right now, today, guess what? I don't even know where I'm staying tonight. You come with me, and there's no guarantee in this world that you're going to get anything. You understand, that is in profound conflict with a lot of teaching that you hear, certainly in some of the televangelist type sweep of things, but also in our own traditions. We have for years and years and years tried to coax people to follow after Jesus because if they do, there'll be good things for them. Oh, we would say, well, no, it's the promise of eternal life, yeah. But we get people to give testimonies of the blessings that they've experienced as following after Jesus, of the way that the Lord has met the material and all the rest. And yet Jesus just says to this man straight out, listen, I've got nothing for you in that category. I've got nothing. You say you're going to follow me all the days of my life? This is what is promised you in this life. Nothing. How deep is the affection when I say, you are my King? The next sentence takes us to another man. It says, another disciple. We don't know who that is. Another disciple said to him, Lord, first let me go and bury my father. This is incredibly difficult to navigate these two verses. And Jesus told them, follow me. Let the dead bury their own dead. Now, I believe we would be abusing the Scripture if we took that and said that applies in every unfolding of your historical journey. What we need to do at this point is say, Matthew, You just bunch these two stories together right like that. What are you trying to say to us? And just as Jesus had said to this teacher of the law, okay, if you're with me, you're with me. It's because I'm the king, simply because I'm the king. You're going to give your allegiance to me categorically, not determined by what you're going to get from this exchange. You're going to be my subject. Then that obviously then passes on to probably the most heart-wrenching notions that could possibly ever be conceived. I have just lost, in this case, my father. I know as I look out here today that some of you here this day have lost the most precious people in your life within the last couple of weeks. I know it. And how would it strike, how does it, it's not wood, it's not theoretical, how does it strike you to hear the scriptures come at you and say, Jesus say, listen, it is so critical that I be the absolute number one commitment in your life, that if it need be that I have to leave today and I need you with me, and that means that you're not even going to stay around to be at the funeral of your most precious loved one, are you prepared to walk with me? See, what Matthew's doing here, he's trying to lay out an example that says, how serious are you when you say, Jesus is my King? That I will proceed without any return guaranteed in this life. That I will proceed if it means the most anguishing decision that I could possibly step through. You see, that long oath of allegiance, yeah, it was probably a legal formation, but it was meant to try to cut off every single caveat and excuse that could possibly be made for not giving my full affections and allegiance to King James. And if you and I are going to dare refer to Jesus as our King, surely we must understand that there cannot be an escape clause. And so the patterns that seem to be at play in the scriptures that we read today are persons who take the initiative to come to Jesus. It needs to be your initiative. We know our theology is clear. It is the grace of God that has first called to us, and who in fact has enabled us to even be able to stand up and to call to Him and say, Lord, forgive me. It is God who has initiated this. But in terms of this enduring relationship, it does fall on you and me. I can't just be here because my family has always come here. I can't just be here because that's where my friends are at. I can't just be here because it's just been a habit of mine for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. Today, as the preacher on this day, I require that each of you and myself take an initiative in and of ourselves to come to Jesus and to say, Lord, here's my life, broken as it is. You can make it well if you will. What I can tell you from the scripture is that Jesus' response to you is, I will. I will. But the deeper testament after that then is the question, right, as we present ourselves to the Lord, will we now follow wherever our King leads? Will I sacrifice everything to let the one who I declare to be the King, in fact, become my King? Where are you at? What would be the hardest imaginable decision for you to make? I'm not going to ask anybody to throw that out at us. You process it. I mean, go deep. What would be the absolute hardest possible decision for you to make? And would you be willing to let Jesus go ahead of that decision? That's what it means to declare one a king. That's the privilege of a king. Now, the whole picture of the Scriptures, from the beginning of Genesis all the way through, is the story of God's desire to relate and walk and journey and have fellowship with His creatures. It's not the static relationship of the king and we're just this. I mean, that's the right posture for worship, no kidding. But all the way through are these conversations of the Lord engaging with His people. The idea from the beginning of time was that this was how it was supposed to be, that there would be the sovereign one who would have the privilege of saying, you can eat anything you want, just don't eat that. Right? I mean, right from the beginning, He's exerting and declaring His sovereignty. And if we just walk in obedience to the King, then this fellowship it goes on beautifully. And the whole of the humanity would be walking with this harmony and this cordialness towards one another. It is so fleeting and so missing right now. Don't you hate watching the news these days? Most of us can't resist it anyway. But I'm depressed by the time I'm done with it. What we are seeing unfolding on every channel and every network in full color is this incredible image of what it means to walk without acknowledging Jesus as King. Because that's the mess that we put ourselves into. I am naive enough to believe that the kingdom that Jesus talks about when He says, may your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven, that those of us who would be determined to let Jesus be the king of our lives, regardless of the price, that we would begin to be the bearers of the kingdom of God, and there would be influence that is extended in and around our communities and across our nations. And that the newscast can be different. But it starts with you and with me. And the willingness to come to Jesus first. And then to cut all ties. And say, you are my sovereign. Anything you ask of me, Lord, you are King. Let's pray together. Our Lord and our sovereign Jesus. There are dozens and dozens of stories in this group. A walk with you, a walk away from you, of being found by you, your reckless love, of deep commitments and of halfway commitments. I ask that through the power and presence of your Holy Spirit, that as the psalmist asked us many, many, many years ago, would you search our hearts, O Lord, and see if there be any wicked way within us, any measure of a reluctance to let you be King in our lives. And grant us the grace now to step forth with a renewed and even a brand new faith. In Jesus' name I pray.
Let's stand and sing one more time.
He humbled himself. Jesus Messiah, name above all names, blessed Redeemer, Emmanuel, the rescue for sinners, the ransom from heaven, Jesus Messiah, Lord of all. His body the bread, His love the wine, broken and poured out, all for love. The whole earth trembles and the veil was torn. Love so amazing, love so amazing. Jesus Messiah, name above all names, blessed Redeemer, Emmanuel, the rescue for sinners, the ransom from heaven, Jesus Messiah, Lord of all. All our hope is in you. All our hope is in you. All the glory to you, God, the light of this world, Jesus Messiah, name above all names, blessed Redeemer, Emmanuel, the rescue for sinners, the ransom from heaven, Jesus Messiah, Lord of all. Jesus Messiah, Lord of all.
Well, praise the Lord. It may be that there's someone here this morning who needs either for the first time or needs a do-over in terms of your acknowledgement of Jesus as King and letting Him truly be the King of your life. You know, I said, and the scriptures, Jesus' response to that man is pretty clear, that roses and sunshines in these days are not promised. They simply are not. But I will tell you this, that the testimony of just about everybody else in this room would say this to you, that regardless, the peace that begins to reign in your heart, in my heart, because I know that once and for all, I am in right relationship with the Sovereign One. That is the actual seat and source of fulfillment and happiness, so that the things that happen around you and in your lives will ultimately not matter, because you will know this glorious love of God in your life. And it may be that you are here today and you need to make that call and say, hey, you know what? That's not been the pattern of my life. I've been not allowing God, through Jesus, to be the sovereign in my life. And I can do that today. My habit is to just stay around at the front here. And so as the music just sort of plays us out, if you want to talk further, if you just want to spend some time praying at the front, or if there's someone in this room that you know knows you, don't let them, just go to them and say, hey, listen, can you pray for me and help me here? I just want to be clear in my relationship with the Lord. Father, thank you for your presence this morning. We were determined that from the very first lyrics of Fanny Crosby earlier this day, through the song that we just sung, through the scriptures that were read, through submitting ourselves to your word, Lord, our intention was that you would be honored, that you have honored us with your presence, and we give you thanks. And so, Lord, now I simply would pray that through the continued presence, the voice and power of your Spirit, that you would walk near to these persons as this next week unfolds. Help them, Lord, by your grace, to honor you with their whole lives, and may you be glorified through them. In Jesus' name.